I'm joined by Jonathan Portis, a research fellow at the National Institute of Economic and Social Research in London. Jonathan, thank you very much indeed for your time. OK, I've written 3 words down here while listening to Theresa May. Acrimony, anger, exasperation. Those feelings being felt by both Remainers and Leavers in the United Kingdom. Is this going to bring any political cohesion, unity and social understanding between the two sides closer?
First of all, I should say that I'm actually a professor of economics at King's College London. I have nothing to do with the National Institute of Economic and Social Research.
No, quite right to point that out. We should be factually correct. Right, carry on.
Yes, indeed. But carry on. I think there is very little prospect of this deal bringing the country together, I'm afraid. As your correspondent said, the problem has always been, the problem Theresa May has always confronted is that while the country voted for Brexit, the majority of the electorate did indeed vote in the referendum for Brexit, they didn't vote for any particular type of Brexit. And so it was always the case that when an actual plan was put forward, that some people wouldn't like it, even before Brexit. As your correspondent said, the country is really split several ways. There are people who think this deal is too soft a Brexit. There are people who think this is too hard a Brexit. There are people who think that who still think we should not leave the EU at all. The proportion of either the population or of Parliament who actually think this particular deal, Mrs. May's deal, is the best outcome is very, very small. It really doesn't have an awful lot of support. So while Mrs. May wants to put all the arguments, acrimony behind us and for us to unite as a country, I think the prospect of that happening is very small indeed.
OK, Jonathan, let's tap into your expertise as an economist then. Mrs. May said in her news conference there in Brussels that this will end, she called it the vast annual sums that the UK sends to the EU. Can you break that down for us in terms of how much money is sent? You don't have to give us exact figures, but how that compares to how the UK economy will suffer under whatever sort of terms are agreed when a trade deal is eventually done.
So at the moment, our net contribution to the EU is about very roughly 10 or 12 billion pounds a year. And we will save that, not right away, but over time, we will get that money back, as it were. But as you quite rightly say, that's only one part of the equation, because this deal will also have significant negative economic consequences for the UK, which means that by most estimates, we'll end up actually worse off rather than better off. We'll have less money to spend rather than more money to spend. Now, exactly how much, it's very difficult to say, but the sort of estimates that we've seen are that that this sort of deal might cost us in the region of 2, 3 or 4% of GDP over the long run, and that would certainly outweigh any savings that we're making. So, it's very difficult to see this being a good deal for the UK from an economic perspective, at least.
And from a political point of view, how comfortable are you looking at this from a political point of view? Because economics could be described as a science, even though it's fairly inexact. Do you believe that Theresa May is sacrificing possibly the future economic prosperity of the United Kingdom for the sake of politics? When she talks about ending the freedom of movement, and people have criticised her for talking about this particular issue with a kind of gusto that makes them feel uncomfortable, is she making sacrifices that are going to affect the country's economy because of one particular viewpoint in the United Kingdom?
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, she has chosen to prioritise ending free movement, restricting migration from the EU above everything else, and it's because of that reason that we have to leave the it's because of that the negative economic consequences of this deal are inevitable. So once she had made ending free movement a priority, I think it was inevitable we would end up with a deal that was bad for the UK from an economic perspective. And of course, she's quite right that a large number of people did indeed vote for Brexit precisely because they wanted to end free movement. But it's far from clear that a majority of the country puts ending free movement above the economic interests of the country, which is what she's choosing to do. That is very much a political choice, and a political choice that she's choosing to make. And again, it's not clear that a majority of the country or a majority of Parliament is prepared to go along with that choice. So we may very well end up in a completely different position. We just don't know.
Jonathan Portes from King's College London. We appreciate it, Jonathan, and apologies for getting your title wrong, but thanks for giving us your time on TRT World.